So, Secret Service, in a nod to basically who they believe is going to win the presidency, and honestly, probably trying to put the rest in the ideas of the president refusing to leave, meaning Trump would likely be escorted out. Now, the reason I think that is because I don't think he has that many friends. Meaning, if you look to the Senate, do you honestly believe that those Republicans in the Senate that did everything they could to prevent him from getting that stimulus want Trump in that office? I don't think they do. I don't think he's their type of Republican, frankly, so I don't necessarily think they'll back him. But either way, Secret Service is now apparently increased the number of forces or the number of agents that are surrounding Joe Biden, and airspace around Joe Biden's house has been walled off. So this, if nothing else, is a nod to who Secret Service believes is going to take the presidency. Joe Biden has taken the lead in Pennsylvania. Trump has the lead in North Carolina. Joe Biden has taken the lead in Arizona. And of course, there's going to be all sorts of lawsuits and everything else. But many of the Republicans are not backing Trump in this. And, you know, without the small cadre of people who are around him, many of those Republicans in those states, be it in Pennsylvania, have been like, yeah, no, I'm not going to burn myself on the fire for you. So Trump will get his lawsuits. Where they go, I highly doubt anywhere. And it seems like the mechanisms of government itself, Republican and Democrat, are basically continuing the count. I mean, the weirdest part is that Trump is on Twitter and Trump is out there screaming that the election is being stolen. And Republicans and Democrats in these states are just going along and continuing what they're doing. Oddly enough, you have protests saying keep the vote going, and you have protests saying stop the vote. How bizarre. From the standpoint of a higher ideal of America, what matters, what should matters, is an accurate vote count. The public goes out, the public makes their vote. Now, there's all sorts of things that are interacting in the public's choice. You have media who puts out, and seemingly the direction of media was the direction that the public perspective went, especially in the Democratic primary. You have them largely on the side of Joe Biden. You have social media seemingly largely on the side of Joe Biden, protecting him in some respects. And you have to believe that if it wasn't for COVID, Trump would have won this election by a mile. And you have to ask the question, why? How does a president have 220,000 deaths, 20 million people out of work, millions of people being ripped and thrown out of their houses, 8 million people infected with COVID-19, global warming from the standpoint of floods or fires. And in some cases, you have these kind of hurricane fires, which is just the most weirdest thing in the world in California. What I'm asking here is how on earth does a president with all of that running on like this dinner bell around his neck, how does he get this close to winning? And what does it mean about the Democrat that a president with this much around his throat can get this close to winning? Now, you could say voter fraud. You could say, oh, Republicans were using this metric or that metric in order to cut the vote tally and all this other stuff. But Democrats lost in the House, and they were not able to keep the Senate. And yet they're saying Joe Biden had these magnificent totals. Okay, Joe Biden wins. But think about this for the moment from the standpoint politically, especially from the standpoint politically of your distribution of the political spectrum. Meaning, if you are indeed a lefty, you have to ask yourself, what happened? Why did the lefty strategy fail so monstrously? And what do I mean by that? You have a situation where after Sanders loses, Sanders immediately goes after and said back to Joe Biden. AOC, all of these other lefty groups, despite the fact being loud and belligerent and everything else, all of a sudden turn tail, spread cheeks. And all of them back Biden. Subserviently, willingly. Now, my argument at the time that was the worst position that you could take. The reason wasn't in order to get Donald Trump elected. In fact, if you're Bernie Sanders or if you're somebody on the left and you're one of these people that are hysterical about getting Joe Biden in office because you're terrified that Trump is going to be a tyrant or a dictator, then your best position politically, clearly at this point, would have been to attack Biden. Counterintuitive, yes. The fact of the matter is, if you're looking at what won in regards to the United States, think about it for the moment. Think of all the shit that's going on. And you think that the public mostly are rational actors. A public that are full of rational actors, where you have businesses that have gone bust, people out of work, people struggling, minority communities especially being hit hard by this stuff. And you have a Democratic candidate that runs an inert campaign. Joe Biden was basically the cutout Democrat where it says random Democrat X versus Trump. It was nothing. Nothing. And the left allowed this strategy of Democrats to basically offer nothing to win. What does it mean going forward? What does it mean in 2024? And for that matter, if you weren't able to take the Senate, then what Sanders was talking about, saying that he was going to be, the person in charge of health or whatever, off the table. You sold it all. You sold it all. And you didn't get the dividends. Think for a moment. These people are out there saying, oh, we never want to use the word socialist again. Get out of here. That wasn't your issue. Your issue was that you ran away from that. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. What won on election night? And why did it win on election night? Does it have to do anything with the pain that the public is feeling? And is it rational that when the public is in pain, when the public is in desperate straits, that the public actually does, really do expect the government to step in? And candidates that are running, they expect those candidates to have policies, especially to deal with the crisis at hand. Biden didn't do that. Biden ran a campaign like Hillary ran a campaign, just saying Donald Trump is horrible. Hillary wasn't able to make that work. The fact that Biden was able to make that work, potentially, is disastrous. And yet, the left allowed this, and the left fed into this. And you will be undermined because of it. You're going to get Joe Biden with Mitch McConnell's Senate. And the proclivities of Joe Biden will fall in line with the items that Mitch McConnell want done. Mitch McConnell will get those things done that Mitch McConnell want done. But from the standpoint of the left's priorities, you have lost. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This video is very straightforward. The best scenario, the best position for the left to have taken in this race would have been to attack Joe Biden. Why do I say that? The reason I say that is because you have all of these priorities that you want to get accomplished. And the question becomes, what does the public want? And do your priorities go beyond what the public wants, or are your priorities in line with what the public wants? And if they are in line, logically, you would think you will be more inclined to get those votes, especially if you're running against somebody or against a party that is not offering those things. To make my point that much more clear, legalization of marijuana erupted in various states. Oregon, DC, New Jersey, Arizona, Montana, South Dakota, all legalized pot. Oregon went so far as to legalize all drugs. You would think, again, with all of these items being on the ballot, that the people who are going out there would be further to the left in regards to their politics. And yet, it seems that Joe Biden is barely scraping by. And again, House Democrats lost houses in the Senate. Democratic Socialists of America cleaned up. Oh, you can't use the term socialist. Oh, but it's weird and strange, and it's totally anomalous that 28 of 37 national races and 8 of 9 major ballot initiatives, all written by chapters, won Democratic Socialists of America. The issue is not that Joe Biden went too far to the left. Joe Biden could lose Florida and still have cleaned up. Meaning all of those people saying using the term socialist hurt them in Florida. So what? Give them Florida. You just took Georgia, which is shocking. Give Stacey Abrams a thank you for that one. She put all those minorities on the ballot to allow Joe Biden to get a good chance at that. But beyond that point, take it back Pennsylvania, take it back Wisconsin, take it back Michigan. Those things is a dominant win. Meaning you could have ran hard to the left. You could have supported a Medicare for all. You could have supported an elimination of student debt. And you wouldn't be this close. That's the point I'm trying to make. I am making the point that in the same way that the Democratic Socialists of America cleaned up by backing policies that represent the interests, the material interests of the public itself, and the public recognized them as such. Yeah, those guys are representing my interests. Yeah, the guy gets my vote. In the same way, the Democrats had the House for 50 years nearly, when they were, at the very least, representing the interests of closer to labor. I'm making the point now that in this election, the votes were there to get. It shouldn't have been this close. And the reason it was this close, because Joe Biden ran a feckless, impotent campaign against a president who was far more popular than I think people gave him credit for, and was far stronger than people gave him credit for. But basically, he ran an inert, worthless campaign at a time of crisis. Whereas the DSA were very clear in their intentions: Medicare for all, elimination of student debt, not to mention the ballot measures, and they won. My point is, the problem wasn't that Joe Biden was too far to the left. The problem was that Joe Biden wasn't far enough to the left. And part and parcel to the reason he wasn't far enough to the left was because people like Sanders and AOC and all of these other progressive groups that claim to want these progressive things backed off. You hurt your chances. I kept telling you that before. Your attack on Joe Biden might have pulled Joe Biden further to the left. Might have. Joe Biden could have told you to kick rocks, of course. And that's a whole nother question. If the overwhelming majority of your party is backing a particular policy, and the person who they're running against, they're calling the apocalypse, but they're still telling you to kick rocks, meaning we're not interested in bringing together people organically. We just want to win, but we want to win without any entanglements. We don't want to win having to push through a healthcare plan. We don't want to win having to deal with climate change. We don't want to win having to deal with that stuff. No, I've gotten $1 billion, and just like Obama, I would wager that the people who picked this cabinet and everything else were probably Wall Street. Well, at the very least, it was that way with Obama. But Joe Biden got more money. He has those entanglements. If you look at the 47 years he's been in Congress, he has certain proclivities that you can kind of see where his head goes. The point I'm trying to make here is, in the midst of something, a crisis that is larger than the Great Depression, both candidates took America as almost an afterthought. And they expected America to just basically give them their votes. Biden expected America to put him in office, despite the fact that 70% of the people who were backing Biden were doing so entirely to get rid of Trump. Meaning he was entirely there just as a negative, not there as an affirmative, despite the fact that this is a time where those affirmative items, those affirmative arguments should be made. And the groups that made those arguments won. And the fact that Sanders was willing to back off, the fact that AOC was willing to back off, the fact that the Squad, that all of these progressive groups was willing to back off, allowed Joe Biden to basically continue to be inert. My point is, Sanders, AOC, by not attacking Biden on those items, hurt Biden, because it allowed Biden to basically stay as this inert factor. Yeah, I would make the argument that the left bungled it, just like I say they were going to bungle it. It sounds counterintuitive, but just because you attack a candidate doesn't necessarily mean you're weakening the candidate that you're attacking. You can attack candidates and make them stronger if they logically appropriate those policies. Meaning, if you have 8 million people that are infected with the virus, you have 230,000 that are dead from that virus, then the public itself may be in line for saying, yeah, I want a Medicare for all because I don't want to have to deal with these medical bills, or I don't want to have to deal with this particular item. And Medicare for all went up like 9 points during the course of the election, not to mention it was tried in the fires of a debate and won. My point is that you could have organically brought people to your cause in the midst of a pandemic, pushing for a policy of Medicare for all as the tip of a spear against Trump. And the fact that these lefty groups won, the fact that these lefty policies won, and Joe Biden is eking over the finish line, it gets across that the thing that was missed out of this was actually doing something for the American public. Represent the material interests of the public, and that public will back you. And that is what DSA and their wins tell us. Yeah, Sanders, AOC, and the left fucked up. And I really hope they take this as a lesson. Your objective when Sanders left wasn't over. Your mission wasn't finished. Just because you lost, your objective is not necessarily to win the presidency, even though your objective is to win the presidency. The overarching objective is to get those policies enacted. Period. Everything else is subordinate to that cause, including getting the Democrat in office. If the Democratic Party wasn't willing to organically bring the party together in order to beat a man they call the apocalypse, then those are things that the party needs to grapple with, even now. Think about it for the moment. Think about all the things that the public wanted, and think about the tone-deaf way Biden ran this race, despite the fact that he won it. What does it mean for 2024? You have a split Congress. Is Biden going to be able to deliver in a way in this first term, which is when presidents usually have to deliver, to get him reelected? And if he doesn't get reelected, Mike Pompeo, Ted Cruz, or name whatever other goblin that you can think of that is going to be running against him, that will be able to take advantage of him in a way that an incompetent Donald Trump wasn't. And that's assuming Joe Biden even lasts 4 years. You might end up with a Kamala Harris who is monstrously unliked. Ben Rally, we need a left-wing Trump, in my opinion. Yes. Ben Rally, yeah. You need somebody with no fucks to give. I keep telling you, Sanders could have had a better chance in this race in 2020, even with everybody against him. The thing is, he had to marshal what he had at his advantage, and that's the public. He needed to make the argument that Joe Biden wasn't electable. He needed to go through the media that hated him for making those arguments. Those are things he needed to do. He needed to call Joe Biden a liar. He needed to point out that he was lying about civil rights. All of those things needed to be done. When his people, be it Nina Turner, be it, what's the other cat name? David Sirota, when they were pushing him, he should have accepted that and went that route. They were right in regards to the way you go about winning the campaign. Sanders didn't want to do that. And his weakness basically allowed Biden to stay in the position that he was in. Inert. I tell you this, the market loves it. Ben Rally, it's the standard aerospace protocol. FYI, in a contested elections, the House picks the president. Right, kind of. And the Senate picks the vice president. So brinksmanship seems to be the game. Yes. Kind of, yes. So the House picks the president, but it's not entirely the House specifically. It's like a House delegation from the various states. So it's almost like the states pick the president, not the House. Democrats, despite losing seats, will keep the House. But that's not what would end up picking the president if it got so chaotic where he got thrown to the House of Representatives. Let's hope it doesn't go there. It doesn't seem like it's going there. It doesn't seem like the Republicans are standing by him. The fact that Chris Christie walked back, and Chris Christie, what was one of his main henchmen, kind of gets across, I don't think Trump is going to win this one. Wesley Walker, back at you, Wesley Walker. The House picks the president, the Senate picks the vice president. The Joker in me wants to see that. Well, I don't think you want to see that, because what that would end up being would be the states, far more Republican, choosing the president. That would mean that the Electoral College, the popular vote, the Supreme Court, none of the typical devices in our politics worked. And that the House of Representatives basically chose somebody who the public didn't choose. That would be horrifying. And you think you're seeing protests now. Wait till something like that happens. I'm going to end this here because I didn't want this video to be long. But I'm going to say like, share, and of course, subscribe. Thanks all. I'll see you guys in a few.